Welcome into the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball podcast on the KSR Podcast Network, presented by our friends at El Genie and KU. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very excited. I guess I'm excited. I don't really know how to talk through my emotions right now, but I had to bring in the big guns. The Smiths are back, plural. Got my guy Shawn Smith and Spencer Smith both into... Just walk me through this. Talk me through this. Talk me off the ledge with this 8-point loss to our absolute bitter rivals, the most hated group of humans on the face of the earth. That I just being in the sea of red disgusted me yesterday. Thought I was going to leave with a black eye because I obnoxiously wore my UK gear and got chippy, got some trash talk thrown my way. No actual trash thrown my way, fortunately, but it was rough. Just the whole night just stunk out loud, and I need to hear from the experts here to make me feel better because I'm not feeling good. I understand it's a regular season game on November 11th, but every single bit of it sucked, and I need help. So, Shawn, let's just jump right into this.
I mean, I guess the good news is that it's November.
Are we live? It says scheduled. Steven, are we live?
Are we?
Brandy says we're live, so we're live. Okay, I just didn't want to look dumber than the Kentucky defense looked last night.
That's our first turnover of the night. We still got about 13 more to go.
There we go. Perfect.
I guess if you want the good news, it's November 12th now, November 11th then. So like that's the good news, right? The bad news is you lost your rival. It's going to stink for the entire year because you don't get that opportunity again unless you play them in March. But Kentucky has a lot to work on and a lot of things that you and I talked about after they beat Nichols that I was talking about defensively. I wasn't ready to lean into Nichols being 2 of 29 shooting at one point because I thought it had more to do with them not playing well than it did with Kentucky actually forcing all those missed shots. But we'll get into what went wrong, but it's a difficult matchup for Kentucky early in the season. Kentucky, you can't spot them 20 points twice and then try to claw your way back. Kentucky still had chances to win, but missed some big free throws late as well. Missed a big three that could have cut into it. Just it felt like at the under 4 they were going to find a way to just pull it out, but Louisville deserved to win the game. It actually would have been a shame if they didn't win it in their favor from their fan base because they outplayed Kentucky the entire night.
I would have loved it. I mean, it would have been hilarious because, yes, we did not deserve to win, but I would have taken that final result. 96-88, where the story was Michael Brown, Ryan Conwell combining for 53 points, Spencer, about as good as it gets. What frustrates me is you put those guys at the top of the scouting report, the tippy top, like whatever you do not let them go for 53, and you let them go for 53. And how they got the 53 with the combining for 23-point attempts, leaving Isaac McNeely, 100 career games under his belt, playing high-level, high-major college basketball as one of the best shooters in the sport, letting him get clean looks off. It just the game plan was so questionable across the board for me on the defensive side that, I knew that Kentucky probably was going to look like the 4th best defense in college basketball the way Ken Pom suggested they were because of how good Louisville was. Like, you have to give credit where it's due, but I thought the game plan stunk, and I thought the execution was somehow even worse.
Yeah, it was disappointing to see. I agree that the game plan was honestly about halfway through. I said, I don't know what our game plan is right now because we're a little bit all over the place. We're either, some guys are hugging shooters, some guys are not. Some guys are switching, some guys aren't. Louisville did a lot of like kind of handoff type of stuff. They did a lot of like pin downs into DHOs. They just did random things like that. It seemed like we didn't have like a cohesive idea on how we want to manage that stuff. We were really, really bad in defensive transition. Like we got cross-matched every which way possible because like our effort getting back on defense was really poor. And yeah, like I'm honestly, like I said before the game that I felt like to beat Louisville, we would have needed to just take away all of their good looks from three, let them have what they're going to have from 2, and hope that they can finish. Hope that our bigs can kind of impede them finishing a little bit, but stay home on shooters as best we can. If they do damage in the paint, they do it. But 3-pointers is how they were going to beat us. And honestly, right from the jump, they hit 3. I think 3 of their first 4 field goals were threes. I think 7 of their first 11 were threes. Right. And from there, we were just totally out of sorts. We got spread and scrambled, and we were running around like crazy, and it just totally opened up the offense for Louisville. And so much of it was predicated, though, on it didn't really seem like we had a cohesive idea on exactly how we wanted to cover some of this stuff, which was really disappointing to see. I liked our defense in the first couple games. I honestly, I did. I thought we had good principles. I thought we were physical. But this game and now the Georgetown game are 2 games where we couldn't have, we weren't out physicaling them, and we weren't going to be more athletic than them, and they've exposed our defense now twice. So that's definitely cause for concern on my end.
And Shawn, on that note, because that was kind of one of the main talking points we had all offseason. That's how this roster was constructed. We said that, if you're going to sacrifice some of the clear shooting, woes that this team, there are a bunch of solid shooters, but you sacrifice the Kobe Bryas to bring in the Aberdeens and the Diabates, knowing that it's going to be some type of drop off. But man, you're going to get the physicality. Man, you're going to love the toughness that they play with. And that this is the second time in a row that you just didn't see that. Georgetown and now this go around. That's kind of a sticking point for me, and something I just Oweh. So much to talk about with him. I couldn't have been more disappointed by his performance. But just across the board, the guys who you expected to bring that intensity in this matchup specifically just didn't have the juice.
They didn't, and that's the stuff that we thought. Right, we thought that Kentucky's veteran pieces, the guys that have been in this program, would kind of lead the charge. Now, Denzel Aberdeen was great. Big shots. I don't know if that's the type of night that we can expect from him, not in and not out, but I thought he did some really good things and made some big shots to kind of keep Kentucky in it. Colin Chandler made some big plays, but it starts with Oweh. And let's face it, Louisville had a dude, and his dude was the best. Their dude was the best player on the floor. Kentucky didn't have anything to match that last night. And then, and look, Louisville shot the ball well. They knocked down a lot of threes. I know the overall numbers and stuff kind of trickled the other way late in the game, and Kentucky ended up shooting it better. But they're a tough team to defend concept-wise, especially early in the season. I still thought Kentucky defensively would have had a better game plan, but there was just – I'm like, how in the world are these guys getting wide open, clean looks and just breakdowns and things? Because I just was like, this is how you end up getting – could have turned into 30, honestly, the way things were trending a couple of times. It got to 20, then you chip away, and then it gets back to 20, and then you get it down to 4. Kentucky had chances still playing as poorly as they did. But the other side of things defensively, for me, this is not a coaching staff and not a team that forces a ton of turnovers. We saw that a year ago. I know it was a talking point. Kentucky's not turning people over. It doesn't look like they're going to be the team that's going to turn teams over a ton this year. If you're not going to turn teams over, then you got to be dialed in, communicating defensively. You got to be in position defensively. You got to be disciplined in all those areas. Kentucky was not. And then throwing away possessions while not creating some of those opportunities on the other side with forcing turnovers. It's a disaster, especially on the road against a rival when you give up 96.
Spencer, does that quote bother you? About just the saying that this isn't a team that's built to force turnovers. Only forcing 6 and being a 14-14 team the other direction. That kind of caught wind with BBN, and they are not very happy with knowing how much this roster cost. And then kind of using that excuse again, as we talked about with the athleticism and the length and the defensive intensity that we thought we were getting with this roster. I just think the timing of those quotes is not very favorable on Pope's part.
Yeah, it's disappointing because of how athletic, to your point, how athletic and long and everything this roster is. It feels like we could be really disruptive on the perimeter if we wanted to be. We did some things early on that I didn't necessarily see last night, but Louisville doesn't really run an offense that would have done this. But coming underneath to post to trap the post, a lot of times that can force turnovers because you're making a split-second decision that they're not used to. So early on in the year, like against Purdue and against Georgetown, I was kind of excited. I was like, oh, we're going to mix some stuff up and maybe do some things that do cause a little bit of that. But we haven't seen Pope to this point in his career show that he can coach complementary basketball, right? Where, we're just as effective and efficient defensively as we are offensively. And he hasn't shown that really to this point in his career. I think according to KenPom, the best defensive team he's ever had was like in the low 40s, maybe. And then we saw the journey that we were on last year. And I really thought that this year, this roster would have the ability to be really disruptive on the perimeter, especially. Pope even talked about pressing at different points, right? And, in the offseason and stuff. I think SEC Media Days, there were some quotes around that. And we did kind of the 1-2-2, like three-quarter court stuff last night. But yeah, honestly, I don't love hearing that. I would have liked to have seen us be more aggressive defensively kind of early on in the year. I don't know if we'll ever get there. But, I came from a staff where at South Florida, we taught gap coverages. Coach Cal was big on gap coverages, sit in the gap, keep them out of the lane, force them to take tough long twos or contested threes. That seems like kind of the defensive mentality that we're settling into. But the problem is last night we didn't force tough contested threes. We forced wide open threes. And then we got spread out so much that they just had, like a free path into the lane. So yeah, I can understand why BBN was bothered a little bit by that because we have the roster to be disruptive if we want to be.
Shawn, is it fixable? Is this team closer to the number 4 defense that held both teams to fewer than 59 points in the first two, a feat that's only been touched by that 2014-15 team? We were talking platoons and, oh my God, we're not going to go undefeated, but could we come, those types of storylines versus, wow, this is historically bad defense. What are we closer to now 3 games into this?
I mean, the sample size is still just so small, right? Like we don't really know. Like last night was bad, and it can be bad again against quality opponents. So that's going to be the measuring stick now, right? Is if you play Nichols or Valpo or whoever in the non-conference and you perform well defensively, you're in the back of your mind, you're going to say, well, how will we perform when we play Michigan State? How will we perform when we play North Carolina? You want to see them stack those performances against better competition, programs that have elite level talent and dudes. I mean, you'll get that next Tuesday night. You'll get to see them against Michigan State, which now losing the first one that you lost, that's a pretty important game early in the non-conference season now. But things are fixable because like Spencer was saying, when you look at this roster, we all thought that they would have more upside defensively just because of what they added athletically, the physicality. Like they've got pieces that can be physical. They've got pieces that can impact the game with their athleticism, but it takes discipline to go along with that athleticism. It takes an understanding of the game plan of how you want to defend certain actions that you're defending. Kentucky got lost a ton last night. And like Spencer was saying, it's not like Louisville was knocking down contested shots. They were shooting wide open looks that at that level of basketball in a team that good, they're going to make more than they miss, or they're going to make a high percentage of them. And it just put Kentucky behind the entire night. And then here comes Kentucky trying to do its thing. And then the other side, too, of this, we've talked so much about the depth that Kentucky has, but I know that I've talked about this, too, that I thought one of the biggest challenges would be kind of figuring out what the rotation is going to be because I just don't see Pope being able to play 10 to 11 guys and settling in. That can kind of impact some things as you go along, too, when it comes to defensive matchups and consistency on that end of the floor the same way it can offensively. So I don't know what they're going to do settle in on rotation. Clearly last night, Mark Pope doesn't know what he wants to do rotation-wise. But that's something that I think has to get figured out sooner rather than later as you go through this thing because I just don't see them being able to play the number of guys that maybe we thought.
I think one thing for me that's like real, honestly, like the perfect encapsulation of our defense last night is on the first 3 that they made, which is – if you remember, and if I'm remembering correct, I'm pretty sure it's their first 3. They're in the rotation. I think it was Mikael Brown dumped it off at the top of the key to, I think it was Frew. I think it was the big guy, Frew. And what Otega Oweh did was he kind of helped off of Conwell, but he just kind of lazily, like, kind of dug down to the ball. He just kind of lazily slapped, right? And then it just got swung to Conwell for basically a wide open 3. And here's the thing. if you're going to make that play, Otega, then go make the play. Like if you're going to play for a steal there, then go play for a steal. Like you can make bad decisions, like and catch yourself out of position if you're playing hard and you're like, hey, I'm Otega Oweh. I'm good enough defensively that I'm going to be out of position right here, but I'm going to go get a steal. Like it's going to be worth it. And it just kind of seemed like we were just kind of stuck in between a lot. It was like, we made like the minimum effort to kind of swipe at the ball and dig down, but then we didn't make the effort to get back to our man.
Yep.
It was like that the whole night, where it was like we didn't have any sense of urgency one way or the other. It's like be aggressive and try to force a turnover, or be really disciplined and stay on your man, or don't do either one, which is what Otega and other guys did all night long, and that's just what led to so many open looks. And a team this good, this athletic, this talented, this long should not be giving up 96 points to anybody, whether it's on the road, whether it's at home, whether you're playing the New York Knicks. It doesn't matter. You shouldn't be giving up 96 points. So it's just disappointing to see, to be honest.
If you're going to gamble, you got to win, right? Like in those situations, and that's what we teach. If you gamble, you better win or you're going to sit down.
Or you're going to sit down. And Coach Pope needs to say Otega. That's, Otega did that twice in the opening segment. And it should have been like, hey, you're with me, buddy. You're with me for the next few minutes.
And it sets the tone for the rest of the night, right? Because then you got a Louisville team that's building confidence early in its building, and you were there, Jack, and the building popped. Yeah. And it never lost its pitch that it had from early in the game. I mean, I know I was watching on TV, but that momentum that they gained early lasted the entire night.
It only started shifting like 5 minutes left in the second half, where it kind of felt like that you could feel it get tight in that building. But that was the first time. Like from the very beginning, that was the first time that it kind of felt like a balloon kind of sort of getting the air let out ever so slightly.
And then you miss the front end of a 1-and-1, and then you go get a 3-point possession the other way, and then it's back, right? Like you couldn't capitalize on it. And that's the thing. When you play as poorly as Kentucky did, Kentucky still did some good things to be able to claw back. And we can pick apart and talk about things that really stood out, like Cam Williams going in and making an impact. Like there's positives within it, but the thing is the margin for error to be able to win the game was so thin because of the things that you had done wrong in the first 30 minutes, that even when you gave yourself a chance late, you had to basically play perfect down the stretch to win it. Like, what did it end up being, 12 of 16 at the free throw line, but yet you got to add 2 that you didn't get because you missed the front end of 1-and-1. So really you say, 12 of 18. Still some good things, but a lot to take away. I still feel like this is a really talented and really good Kentucky team and has a ton of potential to be very good. I think the bigger thing, too, is that's a really good Louisville team that's going to be a factor in college basketball and the ACC across the length of the season. But a lot that Mark Pope has to look at on film, and I'm willing to bet a lot of it was not good today when they turned it on.
Good. I hope it was a miserable, the worst film watching experience that we've ever seen. Yeah, like I don't want Otega to get in excuse or feel like, he has so much built up equity with this fan base because of how year one went that he deserves a pass for how he played yesterday, or he's just getting back from the turf toe and he's still not himself. It wasn't the physical things that were bothering me. It was everything between the ears with Otega that I just thought was inexcusable. He was continuing with the ball watching. Like you said, the half-ass play one way or the other, like no intention with anything. His drives, getting downhill, the thing that made Otega a special dog last season, he would kind of just lacklusterly get down the little slap, ball falls out of bounds. Like there just wasn't that killer instinct that we have come to love with him, and that's nothing physical. Like there's nothing that his hurt toe or conditioning or anything that could be kind of a lingering aftermath of missing as long as he did over the summer. You're giving him an excuse, and that's a kid. I mean, he's again, I feel like we have to be transparent in today's era of college basketball, but that guy is making way too much money for a way too big of a role for way too big of a program to let a performance like that slide. It was inexcusable. It was a really, really bad Otega performance, and he has to get better, or Kentucky will not be able to make a Final Four. Like it's not live and die by Ortega, but if Kentucky wants to get to the promised land, Ortega has to be better. The lights have to come on with him, just like the lights will always be on with our friends at LG&E and KU. They know that when the lights go out, it can feel like a full court press, but staying in the know is an easy win. Update your phone number in the LG&E and KU mobile app or in my account. If the power goes out, you'll get play-by-play text from 454-358 with outage updates, safety information, and time estimates for power restoration. Can't text, no problem. We'll call the landline on your account with the same update so you're never left in the dark, because in the dark, there's no defense, but with LG&E and KU, you're always around a team working to get the lights on and let you know the game plan. Update your number today at lge-ku.com/outages. Not switching from all negative to some of the positives, I thought, as you mentioned a little bit, Shawn, Denzel Aberdeen, I thought he was terrific, worth every penny, as we're kind of sticking with the money theme here. Denzel hit some big shots, kind of had that, okay, if nobody else is willing to do this, then I will kind of mindset when the going got tough. I really appreciated that. And just Colin Chandler. My goodness, since March 1st, he's shooting almost 55% from three. I mean, an absolute sniper of all snipers. Been building that confidence, and again, like Denzel, coming up in big moments with hitting some big shots. Spencer, what can you say about their respective performances, especially as shooters?
Yeah, I mean, we'll start with Denzel. Denzel was unbelievable. Denzel was he was in total control the whole game. He got to his spots. He knew what he wanted to do. He was decisive offensively. He made plays for others. He rebounded the ball really well. I think Denzel finished with 7 boards, 2 offensive, 5 on the defensive end. You know, he played about as good of an all-around game as I could have asked for Denzel. Same with Colin. Colin was great. 4 of 6 from 3. Only took 1 2-pointer, but that's fine. You know, he played great defensively, I thought, in the minutes that he was in there. He was one of the few bright spots that I said, you know, hey, I can see Colin is at least giving full effort on defense, which is more than we could say for a lot of the team. I thought Denzel and Colin both defensively were at least giving a lot of effort. And a lot of times they were in the wrong spots and maybe they didn't communicate and stuff. Like there were issues to be had, but they both played great. Colin's on a heater right now, and you can see him getting more and more confident, which is great. And those two, I mean, they were the difference. Those two and that little 5-0 spurt from Cam Williams were the difference between, to Shawn's point earlier, us losing by 30 and us cutting this thing back down to 4 with 4 minutes to go and a chance to cut it to 2 at the free throw line. Denzel absolutely was what I wanted to see out of him. And it just, you know, it would have been good if we'd gotten that effort all around from the backcourt, but you have to love the confidence. Kind of going into the year, I said, who's going to be that third guy kind of on the perimeter who's like just consistent and steady? Because I felt really good that Denzel was going to be that guy, and I felt really good that Ortega was going to be that guy. I obviously hope that Jalen Lowe and all the summer reports and stuff from Jalen Lowe have been really positive. He wasn't at his best last night. But Colin Chandler being that guy and being just a really consistent three-point shooter can open things up for the team as the year goes on. So, yeah, you got to – if you're going to come away with anything good, it's definitely those two guys.
And Shawn, with Jalen, there was so much good when he first got in. Again, the weird substitution. Why is he coming off the bench? I still don't understand. We're kind of getting into this the Pope thing. Like that part's bothering me, but whatever. That is what it is. But when Jalen came in the game, he was a clear difference maker, was part of the reason why Kentucky was able to come back from 18 down in the first half. And then in the second half, he was part of the charge that helped get Kentucky down to the 4-point, final TV timeout. And then had some moments where he lost Kentucky the game and kind of crushed that momentum. What do you think of Jalen's performance all around? 2 of 8 shooting, had 5 assists, but 3 turnovers. The good, the bad, the ugly that kind of came with Jalen.
Yeah, the ending probably overshadows a lot of the good, right? Just because it happened down the closing stretch. He also had a missed layup there at one point in the game. I think it still was the first half, where it was just the game was so up and down, and Louisville had all the momentum and misses one. Missed an open 3, fronted of a 1-and-1, going baseline late, steps, like all that stuff piled up at the end. So it's easier to kind of look and say down the stretch he didn't play well. He's got better basketball in him. I know missing a few weeks and some time there after that injury has probably thrown off some rhythm. I'm not ready to go all in on it being a poor performance and being concerned after one game, right? Like I want to see how he bounces back over the next week or so and as he gets his footing with this rotation, because I still think that that's a big thing here is as these guys find their roles and find where their minutes going to be, what lineup combinations are you going to use? Because I think that all that can kind of counter itself. And when you settle in on those things, and then I think that's going to be the most difficult thing for Mark Pope to figure out in the coming weeks is where he wants to go. I know, last night the moment looked too big a lot of times for Jasper. It looked too big for some other guys, but then you have Aberdeen step up, make his plays. Colin Chandler, you mentioned the sample size for March. He's an elite shooter. I want him to shoot every ball that he has when his feet are set, and he's got a clean look at the rim. So not too worried about Jalen Lowe after one game. Are there things that you want to see better? Yeah, you want to see him go to the free throw line and make that free throw, because I feel like if they're able to get those 2 free throws, then there's real game pressure on Louisville for the first time in that game. There was some real game pressure in that coming out of that media timeout, and Kentucky couldn't capitalize on it. But Kentucky lost the game in other areas, not just front end of a 1-and-1 there. Like they lost the game from all the other things they did wrong. Now it comes to Ortega, 5 turnovers. And as Spencer said, 2 early defensive mistakes there. I mean, all that stuff piles up on you, and you can't be the guy and perform that way. And look, now the honeymoon phase is over, right? Like last year when Kentucky lose a game, there wasn't as much negativity because it was Mark Pope's first team. Everybody knew that it didn't have the talent level that it is now. But when you go spend the money that you have on this roster, the honeymoon's over. There's more criticism to come, especially when you lose to your rival on the road. But now it's like, okay, you got to show me something. How do you bounce back from this? How do you get better defensively? There's a lot that they got to work on.
And Spencer, on that note, I feel like the Ohio State loss, the Ole Miss loss, we've seen this team find itself in positions to lose in blowout fashion. We've also seen in some of these bigger, higher profile opportunities, Tennessee in the NCAA tournament, Alabama, Auburn at home, especially, we've seen some chances where kind of belt to ass for Kentucky in the wrong direction, and this kind of fits. The score ended up closer than it could have been, but I felt leaving that game, even with the comeback, that Louisville kicked our butt. Like that was just kind of the general vibe. I do feel like fans are not turning, but we have, as Sean said, like knowing the cost of the roster, knowing that these losses are kind of stacking against Pope. I think his record against SEC, or there was a stat that I saw earlier, but I wish I had it in front of me. But we're seeing some of these losses kind of pile up on him. Do you see how long is the leash for the fans? Say if Kentucky happens to lose next week against Michigan State, how quickly does the tide kind of turn against Pope?
If we lose next week, I will be concerned. It's hard. I'm trying not to overreact because it was a road game against what I think is absolutely a top 10 team with arguably a top 3 or 4 point guard in college basketball. Definitely probably maybe a top 2 or 3 shooting team in college basketball that was definitely feeling it and in a rhythm last night. And part of that's our fault. But I'm trying not to overreact. Like it's our first road game. Like I came away from our Clemson game last year feeling pretty defeated. And I was like, this team, even though we had already had a win over Duke and stuff, right? It's hard not to come out of these games and just feel like, oh my gosh. I think for me, the thing with Pope is some of those, and it is a Pope thing, but also, it's a player thing. Some of those losses that you mentioned, in my opinion, so much of those, especially when it was kind of belt to ass, like you talked about, boils down to like effort, Like the Ole Miss game last year was just a total lack of effort. We went into that. We took the floor in that game totally unprepared to play. In this game, we took the floor and we showed a little bit of fight early, but we were just kind of totally out of rhythm. And then we let go of the rope for about 6 straight minutes. And that lead went from like a 3-point lead for Louisville all the way up to 18 in the first half. It's like we can't have these periods of time where we just don't compete. Alabama in the SEC tournament, we're injured. I get it. We're up against it. Bama's really good. No one was going to fault Pope for losing that game. we 100% everybody was going to fault Pope if we go out there and we don't fight. And we didn't fight. And Pope said that. Pope said we didn't show any fight. So it's not so much that we're losing some of these games, it's how we're losing them. And it's like knowing that, hey, what would that score have been like with 4 minutes to go if we hadn't just had 2 different 6-minute periods where we just let go of the rope and let Louisville just totally run rampant on us, you know? And I said this to myself, and then I almost texted to my uncle, but our comeback last night felt really different than the Gonzaga comeback last year. The Gonzaga comeback, we're like fighting and scratching and clawing. I was like, this team is here for it. I was like, we might not win this game, but we're here for this fight right now. Last night, I just kind of felt like we were lucky to only be down 4 or 6 or 8 points at the end. And to your point earlier, Jack, like, I don't know if I would have felt good about it, even if we did win. You know, I would have been proud. I would have been happy, but like, I wouldn't have come away from that being like, wow, boy, they showed
almost like an embarrassment on Louisville's part. Like, how could you choke that more so than like, wow, I'm proud that we were able to pull that off.
So it's 2 totally different vibes. Like a great comeback at the end of Louisville, obviously incredible comeback against Gonzaga, but totally different vibes just because of like the fight and the way we were playing and you know, our energy and effort and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, I just think that's the biggest thing in some of these losses that I'm starting to see that I'm hoping is not a trend is like us not being ready to play and us not fighting the way we should fight when we have Kentucky across our chest. But Pope knows that. He's recognizing it. He's taking responsibility for it. So let's see how we show up against Michigan State next week.
Well, and that's like, you know, last night's result. And I know Georgetown wasn't good and it was an exhibition, but when you see Aberdeen play at the level he played, and even Jalen Lowe, when you don't have those 2 guys and you saw Jasper wasn't ready for the moment last night where he had to play a ton against Georgetown, that result I kind of throw out, even though there's still some similarities of not matching physicality in other areas. But I think we're understanding now the importance of Aberdeen, if anything, just because he's looked like Kentucky's best player to this point. Now, I mean, there's some other guys that need to clean it up too. It's not just Otega Oweh. Like Brandon Garrison's got to do something. Like if you're going to eat up minutes the way that he played, like if not, then it needs to flip and Malachi needs to be playing 23, 24. And I know Malachi's got things that he needs to work on, but like you can't be in your 3rd year of college basketball and be a non-factor on the interior in a matchup of that caliber. Like you got to be better. And I'm kind of going in on the guys that have been in this program because Colin Chandler contributed and hit big shots to give Kentucky a chance. But Otega Oweh's got to be better. Brandon Garrison's got to be better. And Jaden Quaintance is coming at some point. And if BG doesn't want to be the odd man out, better figure it out.
And I do want to dig into that a little bit more. I knew I wasn't crazy. So Steven does have the stats. Pope is 15-13 against Power 4 teams. Dating back to the start of his time at Kentucky. So we have the all-time record for top 15 wins, but we're also getting some of the Ohio States and Ole Misses and some of those piling up. So it's just a really weird dynamic where we love the Dukes and love the Louisville last year and all those, but there is kind of a give and take with some of this. But you teed me up perfectly, Shawn. You used the little buzzword Factor, because we're going to talk about our friends with Factor meals. Fall always feels like a reset between back to school, busier routines, and shorter days, and college basketball season, of course. Finding time to cook can be tough. I am experiencing that myself with these trips to Rupp, and unfortunately down at the Yum Center yesterday, just the worst time of my life. But that's why I love Factor. Their chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals make it easy to stay on track and enjoy something comforting and delicious no matter how hectic the season gets. With more variety, with more meals, choose from a wider selection of weekly meal options, including premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost to support your wellness goals. Even more GLP-1 friendly meals and new Mediterranean diet options packed with protein and good for you fats. Savor global flavors for the first time. Try Asian Inspired's meal. I actually had a salad that I loved, an Asian Inspired salad with bold flavors influenced by China, Thailand, and more. From more choices to better nutrition. That's why 97% of customers say that Factor helped them live a healthier lifestyle. Feel the difference no matter your routine. I love the Santa Fe chicken salad. It had chicken breast, lettuce, black bean, and corn salad, tostadas, Southwest spice cheese, and cilantro lime dressing. It was absolutely delicious. So make sure you use our promo code KSR50 off. We would love for you to join us there, KSR50 off. Eat smart at factormeals.com/KSR50 off and use code KSR50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code KSR50 off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready to eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto renewing subscription purchase. Spencer, we talked a little bit about the front court and just the frustration there with Brandon Garrison and not getting enough there, especially defensively. Just so many questions there across the board. Malachi, some defensive questions, but also gave you so much on the glass and, did some things as a lob threat and things like that. So we're seeing us trending toward this kind of fork in the road where Jaden Quaintance is about to make his return. I think I'm hearing still mid-December we should kind of start preparing for this. So you're looking at the calendars. That's pretty darn close. So Pope's going to have a decision to make. How do you see that decision unfolding after seeing Kentucky against real competition for the very first time this regular season?
Yeah, I'm gonna, I'm not trying to be super negative. Like, I don't want to overreact to one game or anything, but I do want to call a spade and say, like, BG was not good last night. Like, BG made very little impact on the game. Any impact that he did make tended to be a negative impact, being out of position defensively, missing a block out. I think he only took 2 shots. I think he was 1 of 2 from the field. I think he was 1 of 2 from the free throw line. BG was not good. I look at Malachi as a guy who, he had some defensive issues last night as well, but played 5 less minutes, got basically the same amount of rebounds, made 3 shots. You're right, he had a couple lobs in there. I view Malachi and BG right now on equal footing, right, as far as their output, maybe even Malachi a little bit more, and he's only 3 games into his career. So, if you're projecting like what Malachi could be come January, February, March, and we're in a Sweet 16 game and you're putting Malachi on the floor, like what he could be. It's hard to say like that I can have the same ceiling for BG, who's been in college for 3 years now. So it's definitely a little bit disappointing to see. I think we need JQ in a bad way. We need a guy who can also eat space up in the lane, who can erase some of those mistakes. Like when we talk about pressure defense and wanting to like get out and be really disruptive on the perimeter, you can do that a lot more when you have an eraser behind you. Right now we don't really have that. But I just think like we were looking at the front court last night as an area where we should have dominated, given our talent and size and everything like that. And given that we know that's kind of a weaker spot for Louisville, we didn't out rebound them. Right. I think we did. I think we out rebounded them by 2. Right. We were equal with them as far as offensive rebounds go. We both had 13. The interior was not an advantage for us last night, and we really needed it to be. So there's legitimate question marks with BG being a 3rd-year former McDonald's All-American. Like, what are you giving us on the court for 23 minutes? I think he played. And Malachi, I'm still excited about. Malachi, I still see as a guy who's making really, really good plays when he's out there, and he's making a good impact, but not really out-rebounding Louisville, matching them on offensive rebounds, stuff like that. That was disappointing, and I think JQ will go a long way in fixing that. But yeah, it's a big question mark for us. And Mo Diabate, like only 17 minutes. He was not good for long stretches. I think he only had 4 rebounds. He was not – anytime Denzel Aberdeen is your leading rebounder on your team, it's probably not a great sign on how your interior guys played. And so that was an indictment on us last night. It definitely cost us for big stretches of the game.
Sean, Andrea Yelovich came in, made a nice little impact, only 10 minutes. That part kind of confused me a little bit. Just again, the rotation is just feels like we're just kind of throwing stuff out there and seeing what sticks. And I thought of the things that were thrown out there that Andrea was one of the things that did stick and held his own defensively, fought. I never kind of questioned. He's just getting a feel for where he is on the floor and building chemistry alongside his teammates more so than like a fundamental issue or a skill thing or a like basketball IQ thing. I think he has all of those things. I think it's just a familiarity thing that we're working through with Yelovich. But I thought he gave great minutes. And then our first look at small ball for Cam Williams, I thought he made a nice little impact there. Do we go small as we deal with these 5 questions until JQ comes back? What is the solution, do you think, outside of let's just keep throwing the same thing out here and hoping that it gets better?
Well, that's where I still think we're probably a few games away from where Mark Pope really wants to go with this, because I still think he probably feels he needs to collect a little bit more of a sample size when it comes to how these guys are going to play, lineup combinations of who's playing together. Like, I mean, there's so many different directions Kentucky can go. I just don't think they can go as deep as what maybe he would like to, or maybe what he thought. Now, they got a lot of talented pieces, but sometimes that can be a bad thing more than a good thing, because now you're not finding that 5, 6, 7, 8 that really mesh together. Yelovich, to me, I'm not ready to move out of the rotation because I don't think he's done anything to play less. I'd like to see him maybe a little bit more against a team like Michigan State to see what he can contribute and what he can add to it. Cam went in and made some impactful plays. Not only did he make a 3 and attack the rim and get a putback, he also had a block that saved a basket there on the defensive end of the floor. I thought he impacted the game and was in, and credit to Pope for sticking with them for that stretch too, coming out of that timeout and not mixing it up. But Mark Pope's got a very challenging spot to be in right now because there are a lot of guys, and he is trying to figure this thing out on the fly. It didn't help you that Jalen Lowe was out for a stretch in leading up to the season, where you're kind of mixing and matching and bodies, and then Aberdeen's out for a game, so you don't really get to kind of see lineup combinations here and there. But it's going to be a very challenging thing for him. But I just think that this thing will be better off when they find out who those 9 are. I just don't think it's going to be able to go 10, 11, 12 and find the chemistry that you're wanting to find.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know some fans were complaining about it in the chat, but hey, one more, we'll make it through. As you all know, we've partnered with our friends at BetMGM for this college basketball season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. When you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and you will get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college basketball season one for the history books. Make it legendary. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up with BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. We talked to, they had the 3rd highest odds with BetMGM for the national championship, Shawn, this time last week. What do you kind of have your championship expectations shifted at all? Was this kind of just we struggle in the first true road game of the season every single year? I mean, dating back to the Coach Cal era, like this is just kind of a thing. We saw the Clemson game last year. That was just an absolute disaster. Is this one that you just throw the tape out and move forward and get ready to win the BBN United Tip-Off Classic presented by Kentucky Tourism on Friday? Or how are you kind of navigating the big picture?
I'm not ready to change my stance on thinking that this team has the talent to make a final weekend, because I think that would kind of just be discrediting how good Louisville was last night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair.
I'm ready to lean in and say that Louisville's a really good basketball team, and Kentucky just didn't match it last night. Now, if this game were to be played in January, February, where Kentucky's more polished than what they are, then maybe you have a different result regardless of the building that it's played in. But I'm not going to discredit Louisville by changing my expectation of what Kentucky can be, because I still believe that this is a good roster. I think that they have a lot of pieces that can contribute. It's just about finding out who they are and what direction Mark Pope wants to go with it. And typically you would say throw away the tape, but in this one, there's so much to gain from watching it and dissecting it and figuring out and seeing where you're wrong, that this is one that I'd like to hold on to and say, this is what we can't be at any point the rest of the way. This is not what this is supposed to look like. And kind of use this as a measuring stick from where you were on November 11th to where you are on mid-December, mid-January, and kind of look at it from there. But there were a lot of hard lessons to take out of this. Unfortunately, it's a loss to your rival. But Kentucky can be better and significantly better, and I expect them to be.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I was just going to add to that. Honestly, there's a lot of good stuff too that came out of this tape. Also, I don't want to be totally doom and gloom. Where like Sean, I'm sure you noticed. Like at the end, we were like in the last 8-minute stretch, we were switching everything. We had a lot of success with that. That was fun. I was like, this is great. And that's where a guy like Yelovich is really good because he's shown early in the year he's pretty good actually at staying in front of guards and stuff. So maybe if we adopt like more of a methodology where it's like, hey, well, we're going to switch a lot more because we have the pieces to do that. Maybe that lends itself to Yelovich being able to play more. Maybe we go small ball with Cam a lot more. Or maybe, hey, I don't know. There was rumors about Mo D at the 5 at different points, and maybe we even see some of that. There was in that push there at the end. Even though like I still felt like effort was a thing or whatever, there was still a lot of really good stuff that I was like, okay, this is good. Like I wish we had been doing this the whole game, right? So honestly, there's some good pieces too. Like Sean said, Pope's still collecting data. He's still doing his thing. So our defense might look totally different the way we handle some of these matchups come mid-December because we're learning still what this team can do and maybe what they're not great at. So, yeah, you definitely don't want to burn the tape because there's some good stuff in there too, but definitely more bad than good, unfortunately.
Yeah, I want to stress just how good Louisville was and how impressed I was with their game plan and approach. And, hearing Pat Kelsey talk at the podium afterward, he like totally embraced the, hey, we have not held up our end of the rivalry. We, it's been my job to fix that. We know the numbers. We know we've only won 3 games since 2009, having 1.5 decade in this, and we have to do our job. And he said that at the podium last year at Rupp Arena immediately after taking the loss, and said, I'm going to spend the next 365 days obsessing over this game and saying, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And you could tell like there was that extra want to on Louisville's side. And, you have to give them the props and the credit they deserve. Conwell's an amazing player. Michael Brown's an amazing player. They're deep. They're talented. I feel like this game says more about Louisville and how, maybe we undervalued them going into the year than anything to suggest that Kentucky isn't the team we can, hope and dream that they become, because I still feel that good about Kentucky. I just feel like maybe I'm a little higher on Louisville now than I was, maybe gave them the respect or credit going into that game. So I definitely don't want to I want to give them the respect and credit they deserve, Sean.
And this team needs Jaden Quaintance. And I just got a text asking me how, he plays into this team right now. He fits in, and Spencer hit it a moment ago. When you've got a guy like that on the back end, it can give you a ton of confidence guarding the ball, right? Because if you do get beat off the bounce, you're funneling it into size and athleticism that can make a play for you at the rim. Interior-wise on the defensive end of the floor, every team needs its potential top 5, top 10 pick, right? Like regardless of who they are in college basketball, you're going to get better. But Kentucky, I think, really needs him at some point whenever that becomes available. But it's one night, right? It stinks because it's your rival. If you'd flipped this and lost to Michigan State last night and then you turn around and beat Louisville on the road on November 18th, we're probably feeling a little bit better and a little bit different. You can go beat Michigan State a week from now and you'll feel better, but you're still going to remember losing to Louisville early. But let's also say that Louisville had all their chips in last night too. Like that was Louisville's official I'm back. Moment. The building was juiced. The roster's good. Pat Kelsey's got great energy. You had a Kentucky team coming in that still hasn't established its identity of what it wants to do on either end of the floor and rotation wise. But you also got this game early in the season, the earliest that we've ever seen it played. So a lot of it was in Louisville's favor. And let's face it, that's a team that's hard to guard. Even harder to guard when it's your first real matchup at this point in a true road game. And Kentucky just didn't answer the bell, but I would expect them to, in those moments, be better moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, we're going to start wrapping this thing up. There are a couple comments in the chat about just seeing the love affair nationally with AJ DeBanza and Koa Pete and Darren Peterson and Michael Brown definitely included in that. Spencer, how do you view the pursuit of high-level 5-star future lottery pick freshmen now versus kind of where we were a year or two ago, where it was kind of pushing high school to the side and pushing all of your chips in on transfers? Is this any more sign that Mark Pope has to do whatever it takes to land Christian Collins and Tyron Stokes and go down the list with the high-level freshmen?
Yeah, I think I think trying to get one or two of those a year, I think is I mean, it would be my play is to try to get one or two of those a year. I think we still see in college basketball that experience wins, right? Like we saw a very young Duke team that was utterly just unbelievably talented a year ago just crumble against Houston, against their experience and all of that, and kind of their veteran leadership. And yeah, we saw a very veteran Florida team kind of do the same thing. I still think that experience is going to win out at this point. But man, I mean, watching the freshmen so far this year, Darren Peterson's special, AJ DeBonsa's special. Like we saw Mikel Brown last night. Yeah, it'd be really fun to have one of them on the team. Like Marion, kind of one of those guys, maybe two tops with a really experienced kind of loaded back into the roster, I think would probably be the way to do it. So if you can go get Collins, if you can get Tyron Stokes, if you can get Holt, somebody like that, try to get two of those guys, that'd be big time. And then just load the roster up with a lot of experience. At the end of the day, I still think experience is what's going to win you a title. Maybe mix in one or two big time freshmen, but don't have that be kind of the core of your roster. It's my opinion.
Speaking of title, we have a title to win on Friday night. Hope you get your scissors and your ladders ready to go. We're going to Rupp Arena. We're gonna cut down the nets. We're gonna put up a banner for the BBN United Tip-Off Classic presented by Kentucky Tourism. So let's wrap this thing up and get out of here. Get it was a nice little vent session, good therapy to get some stuff off our chest and move on after a very disappointing night at the KFC Yum Center. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, make sure you do that. Like it before you leave this this podcast. Make sure you go subscribe to KSR Plus. A bunch of good intel, a bunch of fun stuff over there right now. So make sure you do that. And I guess let's just say for Jack, for Spencer, for Sean, we'll see you Saturday to recap hopefully a big time win over Eastern Illinois. We will see you then. Go Cats.